Have you ever come across a story that doesn't just, entertain you, but really grabs hold, like sinks its teeth right in?
Oh,
The
definitely.
kind that sort of becomes part of our cultural DNA almost,
Mhm.
influencing movies, fashion, even how we think about, well, monsters.
Yeah,
What makes a horror story like that stick around for, gosh, over 100 years?
that's a really great question. And I think often it boils down to how well a story taps into those deep, universal human fears and desires, too. It crafts characters and, importantly, settings that just resonate long after you finish the book.
Yeah,
There's a certain alchemy to it, a kind of magical mix and truly iconic stories that lets them, well, transcend their own time.
absolutely. And speaking of iconic, welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take the sources you're curious about, we peel back all those layers, and we really try to pull out the crucial insights to get you well informed and hopefully fast.
And today, our mission is, it's a deep dive into one of the big ones, Bram Stoker's Dracula from 1897. Our source here is a pretty comprehensive summary of that really intricate narrative.
Okay.
And our goal is basically to unpack the chilling plot, get to know those unforgettable characters, maybe explore them a bit, and crucially uncover the timeless themes that make it such a cornerstone,
Hmm.
for literature and the horror genre.
Right. So get ready for, I think, some genuinely surprising facts, maybe, and definitely a few aha moments as we navigate the gothic shadows of this legendary tale.
Mm.
We're going to trace that terrifying journey, starting in those eerie, misty castles of Transylvania.
Mm-hmm. A land just brimming with ancient superstition.
Yeah, and then following it all the way to the gaslit streets of Victorian England, which felt so rational, so modern at the time. We'll follow that path of darkness, but also look at the brave souls who actually dared to stand against it, trying to understand not just what happened, but why it still gets under our skin today.
Exactly. We'll dig into the core elements of Stoker's, frankly, masterful plot construction. We'll look at the harrowing transformations, and those are both literal and, metaphorical that the characters go through.
Right.
And those underlying messages about good, evil, society, themes that still resonate even now, almost 130 years later. It's a story that keeps getting retold, reshaped in pop culture, but its terrifying core, that remains utterly unchanged.
Okay, let's do it. Let's unpack this incredible story. We should probably begin our journey right at the start, at the genesis of the terror, with a rather, well, unlucky or maybe just naive young man named Jonathan Harker. He's just setting off on what he thinks is a standard business.
Great. So Jonathan Harker, he's a young English solicitor. Our story kicks off with him on this professional errand that pretty quickly takes a turn for the surreal, doesn't it?
It really does.
He travels out to Count Dracula's castle, which is remote, formidable, nestled deep in the Carpathian Mountains, Transylvania. And Stoker paints this place as just steeped in ancient mystery, superstition, a profound sense of isolation.
A world away from London.
Exactly. A stark contrast to Harker's familiar, modern, bustling Victorian London. So this initial setting, this shift in geography, it immediately sets up this deep sense of unease. You feel like he's crossing a threshold into some other, older, much darker world.
You really can almost feel the chill in the air, can't you? Just picturing
Yeah.
this young guy from, industrialized, supposedly enlightened London in the late 1800s,
Mm-hmm.
venturing into a place that's described as so remote, so ancient, so
Mm.
other. Stoker is just brilliant at building that atmosphere. And we as readers, we experience this huge shift mostly through Harker's own diary entries, right?
Mm.
Which is a key technique here. What does using that format, the epistolary format, actually do for the sense of dread?
Oh, that's such a crucial point. The whole novel is structured that way. Diary entries, letters, telegrams, even newspaper clippings. By putting us directly inside Jonathan Harker's personal journal right from the start, Stoker completely immerses us in Harker's own subjective terror.
Right. It's his perspective.
Yeah. We don't just hear about his experiences secondhand. We're living them alongside him, day by day. We feel his growing confusion, the creeping unease, and then eventually just outright panic. It grounds all the fantastical stuff, the vampires, the castles, in a very real, very human experience of terror.
Makes it more believable in a way.
It does. It makes Dracula's world all the more unsettling because we see it through the eyes of someone who, at first, struggles just to comprehend, let alone believe what's happening to him. And that silent, imposing castle, centuries old, miles from anywhere, it almost feels like a character itself, whispering old secrets, magnifying Harker's vulnerability.
It definitely sets the stage for a really personal kind of horror, doesn't it? Because Harker, he isn't some brave adventurer. He's just a guy doing his job, and that makes his fear so much more relatable.
Exactly.
That sense of foreboding, the hint of ancient evil lurking in that distant, isolated place. It just builds from the second he steps off that coach, doesn't it? What begins as just a routine business trip spirals really quickly into this waking nightmare.
It really does. Harker's initial unease, it soon shifts into this dawning, horrifying realization that his host, the Count, is, well, he's far from a typical client. The way Stoker unfolds this, it's methodical, chilling. It's central to building the novel's unique brand of terror.
Yeah, it's not like an instant reveal.
No, it's this slow unveiling of Dracula's true nature,
Yep.
his vampiric identity, piece by terrifying piece.
And this is where it gets, for me, really psychologically unsettling. Harker gradually figures out Count Dracula's true malevolent nature, and then he realizes he's actually a prisoner, stuck inside those castle walls. And it's not just like locked doors.
No, not at all. Not just physical confinement. Imagine the dawning horror. Harker starts observing things, Dracula's uncanny strength, his ability to crawl down walls like a lizard.
Feel creepy.
The fact he has no reflection in Harker's shaving mirror, his strictly nocturnal habits. And then, of course, there's that chilling, deeply disturbing encounter with the three seductive predatory women often called the brides of Dracula.
Right.
They almost feast on him before Dracula himself intervenes, basically claiming Harker as his own property, his own prey for later. It's the psychological torment of being trapped, completely cut off from the outside world, no way to send a message, utterly at the mercy of this powerful, ancient, and truly evil being. This long captivity, it really shows Dracula's immense control, his cunning, his predatory nature, not just physically, but mentally too. He systematically isolates Harker, chipping away at his sanity, crushing his hope.
Exactly. It's those mental chains that are just so terrifying. That feeling of constant surveillance, the sheer helplessness of being in a place where your host isn't just odd, but monstrous.
Right.
And where the normal rules, the rules of your world, just don't apply at all. You are completely, utterly at his mercy. So what is this elaborate imprisonment of this deliberate, drawn-out way he ensnares Harker? What does it tell us about Dracula's bigger plans?
Well, it tells us a lot about Dracula's methodical, almost strategic approach to his grand scheme. He's not just killing randomly for food in the castle. He manipulates, he ensnares, he takes his time. By keeping Harker captive, Dracula makes sure Harker can't warn anyone while he, Dracula, is systematically preparing for his move to England.
Getting his affairs in order, so to speak.
Exactly. Gathering those crates of Transylvanian earth he needs to rest safely in. It's a chilling display of his foresight and his control. It's like a prelude to his wider, much more sinister ambitions in London. He sees Harker not just as a potential meal, but as a temporary, useful asset initially, and maybe later a source of information about England.
But then somehow, against all odds, Harker's sheer will to survive kicks in. He makes this desperate bid for freedom. Despite the, overwhelming power of Dracula and that imposing fortress, Jonathan Harker manages to escape. Through, as the summary says, immense courage and ingenuity, which is incredible, really, given everything we've just talked about.
It's an extraordinary moment, isn't it? A real testament to human resourcefulness and just sheer determination. His escape, which involves scaling the castle walls and basically taking a desperate leap into the unknown river below, it really emphasizes the immense mental and physical toll this whole traumatic experience must have taken on him.
Yeah, he can't just shake it off.
No way.
Wow.
Even after he's free, Harker is profoundly changed. He carries these deep psychological scars that, frankly, linger throughout the rest of the novel. His survival is, yes, a momentary triumph of human will against this supernatural power, but it comes at a huge cost. He's found later in a state of essentially nervous breakdown, suffering from brain fever.
And crucially, his escape, while a personal victory, it also highlights the terrible reality that Dracula is now completely free to carry out his larger, more sinister plan. He's finished his preparations. Harker's survival means he now carries this critical, incredibly dangerous knowledge, a first-hand account of unspeakable evil. Knowledge that will be vital later, but also just an incredible burden for him and for those who eventually come to believe his story.
The tension and desperation of that escape are just palpable in his journal entries. It's a frantic race against time, an exercise in cunning as he navigates the dangers inside and outside the castle. But his survival means that the dark seed of Dracula's ambition has already been planted, and now it's poised to spread.
Right. So while Harker escapes the immediate threat in Transylvania, Dracula's gaze, his focus, has already turned westward, setting the stage for an even more insidious kind of horror, this time in England.
And with that, the shadow, as you say, truly does lengthen and cross the sea. Dracula arrives in England, a land, let's be honest, utterly unprepared for the kind of ancient evil that's about to descend. Stoker ships the narrative very skillfully here. We find out that two key female characters, Lucy Westenra and Mina Murray, who is, of course, Jonathan Harker's fiancée, they soon encounter his insidious presence. And Dracula wastes no time. He begins to prey on Lucy almost immediately upon his arrival.
This transition is just so effective, isn't it? We go from that Gothic isolation of Transylvania, all shadows and ancient fears, to the bustling, supposedly safe, modern Victorian society of England. London, Whitby, places that feel familiar, grounded. Dracula's stealthy infiltration into this setting, this technologically advanced world, somehow makes the threat feel even more insidious, more personal.
Absolutely. He doesn't storm the gates with an army. He arrives like a quiet, unseen terror, an alien presence hiding within the very fabric of their society. Stoker sets this scene so vividly, describing that ghost ship, Demeter, arriving in the seaside town of Whitby.
Oh yeah, that's a classic scene.
Battered by a storm, the crew mysteriously vanished, the captain lashed dead to the wheel, and only this large dog or wolf seen leaping ashore. It's pure foreshadowing of the horror it carried, those boxes of earth. Dracula needs to survive away from his homeland. And then we meet Lucy Westenra. She represents this vibrant innocence, beauty, maybe a certain modern vivacity, remember. She famously gets 3 marriage proposals in one day.
Right, she's quite the character.
Which makes her a prime target for corruption. She symbolizes the invasion of purity by this ancient evil right into the heart of Victorian domestic life.
It really is the ultimate home invasion, isn't it?
Yeah.
The horror isn't just out there anymore in some foreign land. It's now internal. It's within their communities, their homes, even their own bodies. So what about Dracula's immediate targeting of Lucy? Beyond just needing blood, is there a deeper symbolic meaning there? Why her specifically?
I think Dracula's targeting of Lucy is highly symbolic, and it really taps into some deep Victorian anxieties. It's not just about feeding, it's absolutely about power. It's about the perversion of purity, and it's strategically weakening his potential future enemies by attacking their loved ones. Lucy, with her youth, her beauty, maybe even her slight leanings towards the new woman, ideal, her frankness about her suitors, she represents a kind of ideal Victorian womanhood. By corrupting her, Dracula defiles that ideal. He demonstrates his power to turn innocence into monstrosity.
Inflicting emotional pain.
Exactly, inflicting profound emotional pain on those who care for her. Mina, Arthur, Dr. Seward, Quincy. He effectively turns Lucy into an unwitting agent of his evil, sowing discord and fear among the very people who might later oppose him. And that subtle, sudden, inexplicable onset of her mysterious illness, baffling her friends, her doctors. That's the first chilling sign of his terrifying, unseen presence.
And her condition just deteriorates so rapidly. It plunges her loved ones into the state of confusion and despair. The novel really paints a harrowing picture of her decline, doesn't it? As Dracula keeps feeding on her. It's this slow, agonizing descent into something completely unknown and horrifying.
It is. Stoker details her symptoms with chilling precision. She suffers from this extreme weakness, a really profound pallor, chronic fatigue, and these inexplicable bouts of blood loss, often accompanied by strange sleepwalking episodes.
Right, the sleepwalking.
And these tiny, almost imperceptible wounds on her neck, which of course are the classic signs of a vampiric attack, but they're initially unidentifiable to the bewildered Victorian medical professionals trying to help her.
They just don't have a category for it.
Exactly. This slow, agonizing decline, it builds immense suspense. It amplifies the horror by really highlighting the severe limitations of conventional medicine, of Victorian rationalism against a supernatural threat. It creates this awful feeling of helplessness against an unseen, draining force. It leaves her devoted loved ones, Mina, her suitors, Dr. Seward, utterly confused, trying everything from blood transfusions to tonics, but without any real effect.
You can just imagine the emotional toll. On Mina, her best friend, and on that circle of admirers and doctors, Dr. Seward, Lord Godalming, Arthur, Quincy Morris, they're all devoted to her. But they're completely helpless against this unknown malady. They're watching someone they love just fade away, and no amount of their scientific knowledge or medical expertise seem to make any difference at all. It's a truly terrifying scenario.
Yeah.
It's like a personal horror unfolding right there, in plain sight, but completely mystifying.
And that mounting fear and confusion, that's a central element of the horror here. The desperate attempts by her doctors, particularly Dr. John Seward, who runs the asylum nearby, to diagnose and cure her, his meticulous notes, his scientific observations, they all come to nothing, which just reinforces the idea that they are dealing with something far, far beyond their understanding. It's a complete subversion of that Victorian confidence in science and reason. And the perplexing, increasingly dire nature of Lucy's illness, it eventually forces Dr. Seward to call for an expert, someone with a more, let's say, unconventional understanding of the world, someone who might be able to bridge that gap between science and something else.
And thank goodness such an expert exists. The narrative takes a really dramatic turn here, as the renowned Professor Abraham Van Helsing is called in. He comes from Amsterdam to consult on Lucy's mysterious, baffling illness. His arrival feels like an absolute game-changer for the story.
Van Helsing enters the picture as this figure of vast and often, yeah, unconventional knowledge. He's described as a polymath, a doctor, a philosopher, a metaphysician. He has this deep understanding of both modern science and ancient esoteric lore.
A rare combination.
Very rare. He's fluent in multiple languages, he's well-traveled, and he possesses this profound capacity for both empathy and sharp deduction. His arrival immediately injects this desperately needed sense of hope, even as he starts to uncover the grim, terrifying truth that's eluding the more conventional doctors.
Right.
He's presented almost as a last resort, the one person who might have the wisdom to see beyond the obvious physical symptoms and understand the true, malevolent force that's actually at play here.
He's basically the guy you call when the very respected local doctors are completely stumped and things are starting to get profoundly, well, supernatural. So what does Van Helsing's character represent in the bigger picture of the narrative? Beyond just being the vampire hunter figure, he seems uniquely equipped to understand and confront this particular darkness.
That's a great way to put it. Van Helsing really represents the crucial clash and maybe also the necessary synthesis between the emerging modern scientific understanding of the late 19th century and that ancient, persistent, esoteric knowledge, folklore, superstition. He embodies the idea that some evils, some ancient evils, simply cannot be defeated by rationalism alone. They require an acceptance of the supernatural, maybe even a return to older beliefs and practices. He becomes the primary intellectual and spiritual antagonist to Dracula.
Right, he fights him on both fronts.
Exactly. He's equipped to combat him on both scientific and superstitious grounds. For example, he understands the medical necessity of repeated blood transfusions for Lucy, a modern procedure. But he also insists on using garlic flowers and crucifixes ancient traditional deterrents. He demonstrates this unique ability to bridge these two seemingly opposing worlds.
Fascinating.
His role is really to synthesize this knowledge, to understand this ancient evil using methods that probably seem archaic, even laughable to some of his contemporaries, but which turn out to be the only effective ones. His very presence signals that they're dealing with something far older, far more profound, and infinitely more dangerous than just a strange disease.
And he cottons on pretty quickly, doesn't he? He identifies the true, horrifying nature of the threat, which leads to this shocking and honestly truly heartbreaking revelation about Lucy's ultimate fate. Because Lucy slowly succumbs entirely to Dracula's influence, she eventually transforms into, well, Creature of the Night herself, chillingly referred to in the book as the Bloofer Lady. Van Helsing and the others are forced to realize the terrifying truth of her new, monstrous existence.
This is really where the horror deepens dramatically and becomes incredibly personal for the characters and for us reading it. Stoker forces us to explore the horror of vampiric transformation, and it's not just a physical change, it's portrayed as a profound corruption of the soul.
Yeah.
That term, Bloofer Lady, which is apparently a child's innocent mispronunciation of beautiful lady, its implications are just incredibly chilling. It refers to Lucy's vampiric form, which is seen luring small children away, presumably to feed on them.
Oh, it's awful.
It speaks to this deceptive, beautiful facade masking a predatory monster, and specifically one preying on the most innocent members of society, children. This transformation represents the ultimate perversion of innocence, a horrifying defilement of motherhood ideals, and it's the direct, undeniable manifestation of Dracula's evil influence spreading. It's a truly horrific vision, especially for the Victorian audience who held ideals of female purity and domesticity so incredibly highly.
It's just devastating, isn't it? You feel the immense emotional anguish for her loved ones. They're witnessing their friend, this once beloved, beautiful young woman, become this monstrous entity, a nocturnal, bloodthirsty predator who attacks children. It escalates the stakes so dramatically. It shows that Dracula doesn't just kill, he creates more evil. He turns victims into perpetrators, corrupting the very essence of human kindness and love.
Exactly. The moral horror of that perversion is just immense. It's a profound personal tragedy, and it forces the protagonist to confront the true nature of Dracula's power. His ability not just to take life, but to corrupt it, to twist it into a tool for his own malevolent purposes, extending his dark influence like a contagion. The shocking, undeniable reality forces the protagonists, now guided by Van Helsing's grim understanding, to make an agonizing, almost unthinkable decision. A decision that really tests their humanity and their resolve to the absolute limit.
A decision that is arguably one of the most heartbreaking and yet necessary acts in all of literature. Recognizing Lucy's irreversible vampiric state, Van Helsing and the others, Arthur, Seward, Quincy, make the difficult, deeply painful decision to destroy her undead body, to put her soul to rest. And they successfully carry out this grim, terrible task.
It's a moment of profound moral and emotional dilemma. You feel the weight of it. This act, it's not portrayed as one of hatred or vengeance. It's framed as a tragic necessity. They have to do it to free her corrupted soul from Dracula's lingering thrall and, crucially, to protect the living, especially children, from her predatory new existence.
Yeah.
The novel implicitly details the ritualistic nature of how you destroy a vampire, staking her through the heart, decapitation, filling her mouth with garlic. This really underscores the gravity and the ancientness of the evil they're fighting. It's not something you can just shoot.
Yeah.
It requires immense courage and iron resolve to carry out such a heartbreaking task, especially when it involves someone they once loved so dearly. And particularly for Arthur Holmwood, her fiancé, who is the one Van Helsing insists must deliver the killing blow with the stake.
Oh, that's brutal. The scene is depicted with such a somber, determined atmosphere, isn't it? Where grief is just profoundly mixed with this resolute purpose. They understand now, viscerally, that to truly fight Dracula, they have to accept the monstrous reality of his creations, even if it means destroying what was once beautiful and beloved. So what does this painful act reveal about them, about their enemy, and the nature of the battle they're now fully engaged in?
Well, this painful act really solidifies their understanding of the true enemy they face and the immense, terrible sacrifices that are required to combat such evil. It serves as a stark, visceral lesson in the nature of good versus evil, that evil can corrupt and twist the purest things, and that resisting it requires not just physical bravery, but immense moral fortitude, the willingness to make truly agonizing choices for the greater good. It also irrevocably binds the group together. They share this terrible secret, this awful duty, and a common driving purpose. With Lucy's fate tragically sealed, the group's focus intensifies. Because Dracula, having established his foothold in England and tasted its blood, now sets his sights on a new and perhaps even more crucial target, revealing the full, terrifying scope of his cunning plan.
And this new target is, heartbreakingly, none other than Mina Murray, Jonathan Harker's fiancée and Lucy's closest friend. Just as Jonathan Harker, having escaped Transylvania and somewhat recovered from his ordeal, is finally reunited with Mina, and they get married.
Right. There's that brief moment of hope.
Dracula, sensing her importance, maybe her connection to his enemies, shifts his focus. He begins to target Mina, placing her in the gravest possible danger. This must be such a bittersweet return for Jonathan, right?
Oh, absolutely bittersweet. There's the immense relief of Jonathan's safe return, his marriage to Mina, a moment of profound happiness. But it's immediately overshadowed by the lingering trauma of his own experience in Dracula's castle, and now this acute, immediate danger to Mina herself. And the question is, why Mina specifically, after Lucy?
Yeah.
Well, Mina is portrayed as intelligent, pure, incredibly resourceful, and she's deeply connected to Jonathan and all the other heroes. Remember, she's the one who diligently collects and transcribes all the diaries and letters, a set of Jonathan's journal, Dr. Seward's photograph diary, Lucy's letters. She becomes the de facto archivist and really the intellectual center of the group fighting Dracula.
She pieces it all together.
Exactly. So her corruption wouldn't just be a deeply personal assault designed to inflict maximum pain on those who love her, especially Jonathan. It would also strategically weaken their resolve and potentially compromise all their efforts against him because she holds all the knowledge.
That makes sense. Mina often comes across as the intellectual and maybe even the moral center of the group. A woman of incredible strength, clarity, courage.
Hmm.
Her sharp mind and organizational skills are absolutely crucial to what you called the crew of light.
Yeah.
So what does Dracula's attempt to corrupt her signify about his deeper desires? Is it about more than just blood or even just strategic power?
I think it absolutely signifies a desire that goes beyond just feeding or gaining tactical advantage. It's about profoundly perverting and destroying goodness from within. By targeting Mina, Dracula seeks to defile a symbol of purity, intellect, and resilience. He aims to turn this beacon of hope and organizational strength into an instrument of his own darkness.
It's psychological warfare?
Totally. He forces her into this grotesque parody of intimacy, this baptism of blood, by making her drink his own blood from an incision in his chest. This act establishes a terrible psychic link between them, allowing him at times to access her thoughts, and vice versa. It's a profound act of psychological violation, aiming to break the spirit of his adversaries by corrupting the person they hold most dear, effectively turning Mina into a potential mole, or worse, another monstrous bride like Lucy almost became. The renewed sense of urgency and dread as the enemy directly threatens their most cherished member and their most vital intellectual asset is just palpable.
So the group, now fully aware of the supernatural horror they're facing, having already suffered the immense loss of Lucy, they absolutely cannot stand by. They have to unite to protect Mina. And the narrative really highlights this. Van Helsing and the other protagonists, Jonathan, Dr. Seward, Lord Godalming, and Quincy Morris, they rally together to try and protect and save Mina from Dracula's sinister grasp. This is really the formation of what many readers affectionately call the Crew of Light, isn't it?
This truly marks the formation of that united front, a formidable collective against this ancient evil. The Crew of Light, as you say, it combines all their diverse strengths. Van Helsing's arcane knowledge and wisdom, Jonathan's firsthand traumatic experience with the Count, Dr. Seward's scientific mind and medical insight, Lord Godalming's wealth, social standing, and personal grief driving him, and Quincy Morris's American grit, marksmanship, and adventurous spirit.
A real mix.
A powerful mix. It emphasizes this collaborative effort, the pooling of diverse resources, money, knowledge, courage, and intellect as essential weapons against Dracula's singular ancient power. They use modern technology like typewriters for duplicating records, telegrams for quick communication, train schedules for logistics, right alongside ancient lore, crucifixes, garlic, holy wafers.
It's quite the arsenal.
It is, and it's a powerful testament to friendship, loyalty, and that shared purpose in the face of overwhelming evil. It really shows that collective human will, drawing on different strengths, can triumph where maybe individual efforts would just fail against something like Dracula.
That highlights a key theme then, doesn't it? That collective human resolve, bringing together varied expertise, is absolutely necessary to combat an ancient singular evil. It's not about one lone hero saving the day. It's a group of diverse individuals, each bringing their own unique strengths and their vulnerabilities too, that actually stands a chance against Dracula.
Yeah.
This feels very different from, say, a solitary Gothic hero figure.
Precisely. And you see it in action. The intense, high-stakes moments of confrontation, the various strategies they employ. They meticulously track Dracula's movements, figuring out where he bought property in London, tracking the shipments of his earth boxes.
Right, the logistics.
Yeah, the practical side.
Yeah.
And protecting Mina through both traditional means, keeping watch, and supernatural means, like placing the host, the consecrated wafer, on her forehead, which burns her, tragically showing the extent of Dracula's influence. They set traps, they decipher clues from Mina's own psychic link when Van Helsing hypnotizes her. They pursue him across London, working together, sharing information seamlessly.
They become quite the team.
They do. However, despite all their coordinated efforts, all their bravery and ingenuity, Dracula demonstrates his profound cunning again. His ability to adapt, to evade capture. He's an old enemy, as Van Helsing says, and he knows how to survive. This leads to a crucial turning point in their desperate chase. He slips through their fingers.
Right. And this cunning leads to Dracula's strategic retreat. Despite the hero's absolutely tireless efforts to corner him, to destroy him in England, Dracula proves his immense resilience once again. He manages to escape the country. He strategically retreats back to his ancient stronghold in Transylvania, presumably taking his last remaining boxes of essential native earth with him.
This moment is absolutely crucial for understanding Dracula's character. He's not just a monster, he's intelligent, strategic. His retreat isn't really a sign of defeat in the way you might think of it. It's a calculated strategic maneuver. He recognizes that this united crew of light has become too formidable, too knowledgeable on their home turf in London.
He knows when to cut his losses.
Exactly. He's intelligent enough to adapt and withdraw when facing overwhelming opposition, and it underscores that Transylvania is his domain, his ancestral home, where his power is arguably at its absolute peak. He's surrounded by superstitious locals who fear and maybe even respect his ancient sway. This makes the prospect of the final confrontation back in his homeland even more dangerous and daunting for our heroes.
It must be incredibly frustrating for them, though, to see their quarry literally slip away, sailing out of their grasp after all that effort, and now the daunting prospect of having to follow him back to his land where he holds all the cards, controls the very landscape.
Yeah.
It must be terrifying. It raises the stakes massively, doesn't it? Signaling this desperate return to the enemy's home turf for the ultimate showdown. It's like a reversal of the invasion narrative.
It is. And it also demonstrates something important. While Dracula is terrifyingly powerful, he's not invincible. He can be forced to flee, which gives the protagonists and the reader a glimmer of hope. But as you say, it's a dangerous hope, tempered by the knowledge that they are now entering his territory, the source of his power. The hunters now become the pursuers, embarking on this relentless cross-continental chase, a perilous journey that will test their endurance, their courage, their resources to the absolute limits.
And the novel confirms this. Jonathan Harker, Quincy Morris, Dr. Seward, Lord Godalming, and Van Helsing, they all pursue the Count back to Transylvania, and Mina goes with them, despite the danger and her psychic link to Dracula, which they hope to use against him. This isn't just a physical journey across Europe, is it? It feels deeply symbolic, a journey back to the very source of the evil they need to eradicate.
This pursuit requires almost superhuman determination, unwavering focus, and immense physical and mental endurance for this arduous cross-continental chase. They actually divide their forces strategically. Van Helsing and Mina travel directly towards the castle by land, while the others, Harker, Seward, Godalming, Morris, try to intercept the boat. Dracula is taking up the river, all converging on Dracula's castle.
Trying to cut him off.
Exactly. And the specific mention of Quincy Morris again highlights that individual bravery within the collective. His financial resources help fund the chase, his shooting skills are invaluable, and his personal dedication, partly driven by his unrequited love for Lucy and his horror at her fate, adds this real emotional weight to the pursuit. This relentless chase signifies the protagonist's unyielding commitment. They have to eradicate this evil at its very source. It shows that darkness, no matter how ancient or entrenched, maybe can't hide indefinitely from determined goodness.
It really feels like the ultimate showdown is inevitable now, doesn't it? Good pursuing evil across vast distances. A desperate race against time, driven by, yes, vengeance for Lucy, but even more urgently, by the fervent desire to save Mina before her transformation into a vampire becomes complete and irreversible. The challenges of the journey itself, overcoming treacherous landscapes, the constant threat of Dracula's power even while he's retreating, the ticking clock of Mina's worsening condition, marked by her need for more sleep, her lethargy. It all adds to this almost unbearable tension.
Exactly. The personal stakes are incredibly high. And it elevates the narrative way beyond just a simple monster hunt. It becomes this profound quest for justice, for salvation, with Mina's very soul hanging in the balance. The pursuit is relentless, it's fraught with danger, and it culminates finally in this decisive, epic confrontation, right on the threshold of Dracula's ancestral castle at the very last moment, as sunset approaches and his coffin is being transported back.
And finally, the climax we've been building towards this whole time. The novel's conclusion is clear. The protagonists, our crew of light, they finally confront and they kill Dracula, which leads directly to Mina's salvation. This is it, the ultimate moment of truth, the culmination of all their combined efforts, their sacrifices, their shared knowledge and courage.
This is the novel's electrifying climax. The ultimate struggle, the absolute culmination of everything these characters have endured. The crew of light manages to intercept Dracula's coffin, which is being frantically transported by Romani gypsies who are loyal or perhaps enslaved to him. They intercept it right at sunset, the precise moment when Dracula is supposedly at his weakest outside of his native soil and needing to enter his coffin to regain power.
Perfect timing.
In a frantic, desperate struggle, Jonathan Harker and Quincy Morris deliver the decisive blows simultaneously. Jonathan slashes Dracula's throat with his large kukri knife.
Knife he carried from his own ordeal.
Exactly. And Quincy Morris stabs him through the heart with his Bowie knife. In that instant, Dracula's body crumbles into dust. This is the moment where good definitively, violently triumphs over this ancient evil. And the immediate effect on Mina is described as instantaneous. Her release from Dracula's psychic influence, the fading of that burning scar left by the host on her forehead. It symbolizes the breaking of the curse, the return of light and peace to her soul.
It's a powerful image. But it's a bittersweet victory, though, isn't it? Because we remember the lives lost along the way. Lucy, obviously, and tragically, Quincy Morris himself. He succumbs to a wound he received during that final desperate fight with the gypsies.
Yes, that's a crucial part of the ending. Quincy dies, but he dies knowing they succeeded.
So we celebrate the hard-won salvation of Mina, and implicitly the salvation of humanity from Dracula's potential reign of terror. But there's loss. The profound relief and closure for the surviving protagonists, Jonathan, Mina, Arthur, Seward, Van Helsing, it must be immense, but tinged with that sadness.
Absolutely. Those dramatic final moments of struggle, the decisive blows that finally vanquish the vampire, they provide this powerful sense of catharsis, a release of the tension that has been building relentlessly throughout the entire narrative. The palpable relief as Mina is freed from the darkness signifies not just her personal redemption, but this broader victory for the forces of light, for the human spirit. And Stoker does provide a short epilogue, set years later. It confirms Mina and Jonathan's subsequent happy family life. They have a son named Quincy,
Nice touch.
showing the return of normalcy, of domestic peace. But it also acknowledges the enduring memory of their fallen comrade, Quincy Morris, and the incredible world-altering events they all survived together. So, with the narrative concluded, we can now step back and look at those deeper, enduring messages that make this story so incredibly powerful and timeless.
Okay. And as we move into thinking about the enduring echoes of this incredible tale, the novel's overarching message really does seem to shine through, doesn't it? That good ultimately triumphs over evil. It feels like a fundamental truth woven right into the very fabric of Dracula.
I think that's right. This fundamental theme, good versus evil, it really underpins the entire narrative. It gives it its enduring power, its universal appeal. Despite Dracula's formidable power, his ancient cunning, his insidious nature, his ability to corrupt, to instill paralyzing fear, the collective human spirit represented by the crew of light, their resilience, their moral righteousness,
Yep.
it ultimately prevails.
Yeah.
It's presented as a profound testament to the belief in inherent human goodness and its capacity to overcome immense darkness, no matter how ancient, how pervasive, or how seemingly unstoppable that darkness might appear. And it's significant that the forces of light are so diverse, different social classes, different nationalities, English, Dutch, American, different fields of knowledge, showcasing that unity against evil is portrayed as stronger than any single monstrous force.
And you can see why that theme resonates across cultures, across generations. It offers this timeless message of hope, really, in the face of daunting challenges. The idea that even the most entrenched ancient evil can eventually be defeated by determined goodness. It's a powerful concept, especially when that goodness is unified, working together.
The united efforts of the protagonists, each bringing those diverse facets of good. You've got science from Seward, faith and ancient wisdom from Van Helsing, bravery and love from Jonathan and Arthur, resourcefulness and grit from Quincy. They stand as this stark contrast against the singular, concentrated, ancient evil embodied by Dracula. It suggests that even a fragmented humanity, perhaps like late Victorian society felt itself to be, can, when united by a common righteous cause, conquer a singular, powerful, malevolent force.
But what specific qualities, then, enable this triumph? Because the story also seems to powerfully emphasize the indispensable role of both faith and courage. It's not just about numbers or strategy.
No, absolutely not. The novel powerfully highlights that combating this kind of supernatural evil requires far more than just physical strength or clever planning. It demands profound spiritual and moral fortitude. Now, faith here, I think it can be interpreted quite broadly.
Okay.
Certainly religious faith, yes. Van Helsing explicitly uses crucifixes, holy wafers, invoking God's power. But it's also, I think, faith in one another within the group, trusting each other implicitly, and a steadfast belief in the righteous cause they're fighting for, protecting humanity, saving Mina's soul.
And courage.
Courage is equally essential. The courage to face the utterly unknown, the monstrous, the courage to endure sheer terror without breaking, and the courage to make those incredibly difficult, often painful choices we talked about earlier, like the necessity of destroying the undead Lucy. It's that dual approach Van Helsing embodies using faith and scientific understanding that proves key to their success.
So these abstract qualities, faith and courage, they become crucial, almost tangible weapons against an enemy like Dracula who actively preys on fear, on doubt, on isolation. The psychological and spiritual dimensions of the battle feel just as important, if not more so, than the physical confrontations. Van Helsing's unwavering belief, his ability to inspire the others, and the character's bravery in directly confronting the monstrous. These are prime examples, aren't they? They push themselves to face things that no rational person perhaps could normally believe or endure.
Exactly. And these qualities, this faith and courage, they're often deeply fueled by something else, something even more fundamental, which brings us to another profoundly important theme in the novel.
Right. Our deep dive into the story really points to the profound power of love and also sacrifice for humanity. This isn't just a story about fighting monsters. It seems to be deeply about what truly makes us human and what we are willing to risk for each other.
Absolutely. The narrative delves deep into those powerful bonds of love and friendship that unite the protagonists. You have Jonathan's profound, driving love for Mina, which fuels so much of his action. You have the collective loyalty among Lucy's three suitors, Arthur Holmwood, Dr. Seward, Quincy Morris, even though they were rivals for her affection. They unite completely in grief and purpose after her death.
Yeah, that's quite striking.
And overarching all of that is their shared commitment to protecting humanity itself from this existential threat, this thing beyond comprehension. The sacrifices they make, Lucy's tragic destruction for the sake of her soul and others' safety, the constant personal danger each character faces throughout the pursuit, the immense emotional toll of witnessing such horrors, and ultimately Quincy Morris giving his life in the final battle. These are all driven by this profound love, this loyalty, and this unwavering commitment to the greater good.
So these deeply personal connections, this whole web of relationships, it actually becomes a crucial source of strength against an entity like Dracula, who seems to embody isolation, corruption, and destruction. Love, in essence, acts as this powerful antithesis to Dracula's cold, predatory, utterly isolated existence. It binds people together, gives them strength, where he seeks only to tear them apart and dominate. The unwavering determination to save Mina, for instance, becomes this potent symbol of protecting innocent life, protecting hope itself.
Beautifully put. And these powerful themes, good versus evil, faith, courage, love, sacrifice, all interwoven throughout the narrative, they collectively contribute to the novel's immense and lasting impact. Which brings us really to the core of its incredible, enduring legacy.
The conclusion from our deep dive seems pretty clear. Dracula isn't just a scary story. It's an immortal, truly timeless horror classic, exploring these huge themes of good versus evil, love, loss, the fragility of life itself, and that eternal struggle between light and darkness.
And that really reiterates its enduring appeal, its profound cultural significance well over a century after it was first published, its influence on literature, on film, on the entire horror genre. Well, it simply cannot be overstated. It essentially solidified the modern vampire archetype in popular culture. Count Dracula himself is now an instantly recognizable, endlessly fascinating character, imitated and reinterpreted countless times.
Yeah, he's a vampire.
He is. And Stoker masterfully tapped into so many deep Victorian fears, the fear of foreign invasion, reverse colonialism, anxieties about unchecked female sexuality and the new woman, fears surrounding disease and degeneration, especially with echoes of syphilis, a kind of vampiric illness of the era, and that fundamental clash between ancient superstition and modern scientific advancement. The novel continues to resonate, I think, because it taps into these universal human fears and aspirations. That ensures its continued relevance generation after generation.
Why do you think this particular narrative, with all its layers, all these Victorian anxieties embedded in it, why does it continue to be reinterpreted? Why does it still resonate so powerfully with new generations, even today, in a world that feels so incredibly different from Bram Stoker's?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think it's because its core themes, that fundamental battle against evil, both the evil out there and maybe the potential for evil within ourselves, the fragility of life and the human soul, the profound power of human connection, of love and loyalty, and maybe even the dark allure of the forbidden, the monstrous. These are fundamentally and eternally human concerns.
They don't really go away.
They don't. Stoker created a story that speaks to something primal within us. A deep-seated fear of the unknown, of corruption, of the loss of self, the corruption of innocence. This makes Dracula an immortal classic, one that will likely continue to haunt, thrill, and captivate readers and audiences for centuries to come, adapting to new cultural fears while its terrifying essence remains disturbingly potent.
Wow. Well, we've journeyed through the dark heart of Bram Stoker's Dracula. We've traced its chilling plot from those ancient, superstitious Carpathian mountains right into the gaslit streets of Victorian London. And we've tried to uncover some of those enduring themes: good versus evil, courage, faith, love, sacrifice.
Hopefully you now have a pretty comprehensive understanding of why this particular tale continues to haunt and captivate our collective imagination.
Yeah, we really hope this deep dive has offered you not just, a shortcut to being well informed about this literary masterpiece, but maybe sparked a deeper appreciation for the sheer power of classic storytelling and how even these fictional horrors can sometimes illuminate very real-world truths and anxieties from their time and maybe even ours. So, as we kind of consider the subtle, insidious ways that evil, or perhaps just negative forces can infiltrate and corrupt, often disguised, maybe in plain sight, here's something to think about. In our own fast-paced, incredibly interconnected world today, what modern Draculas might be out there? Maybe things like the subtle spread of misinformation online, or the draining anxieties that come with rapid societal change, or perhaps unseen systemic forces. Could these be preying on our collective minds today?
That's a really provocative thought.
And if so, what forms of faith and courage, what kinds of collective human unity do we need to employ now to stand against them? What does vigilance truly look like when the threats are maybe less obvious than a literal vampire, but potentially just as potent? We'll leave you with that thought to ponder.